Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Cassidy Diamond. I am the Associate Director of Public Programs and Events here at the International Documentary Association. Before we get started, I would like to offer a brief land acknowledgement. I am coming to you today from Chicago, which is on the unceded land of the Potawatomi people who have been stewards of this land for generations. I would also like to offer thanks to our media sponsor, IndieWire, for helping us to bring this series to you this year. And you can see all of our upcoming screenings at documentary.org/screening series. There's a little dash between the screenings and series, my colleague pointed out. So just want to make sure you all get that right. We have another couple months of screenings coming up, so we're really looking forward to them. But you all are here to see a great conversation around Whose Homeroom, moderated by Jarrett Hill. So I'm going to bring Jarrett on right now to get this conversation started. Welcome, Jarrett. Oh, make sure to unmute yourself. Sorry.
Why would I unmute myself? Is
right?
that
We're
what we do now?
Into this. Yeah, we're 2 years into this and we're still like, what is this muting thing? It's fine.
I keep saying I want a line of shirts that say you're muted, and like everyone is like gonna hate them. So
exactly.
Cassidy, thank you for bringing me in. I'm so excited to be here to have this conversation about Homeroom. I just watched the film, as many of you may have, and I had a range of emotions about it. And so I'm really excited to get to talk with the creator of the film, but also two of the folks that we met in the film. So bringing up first, his name is Peter Nix. He's the director and producer of the film. He told me to call him Pete, so I will honor that. Jessica Ramos is joining us. She's one of the students that we met in the documentary. And then also Denilson, is it Garibo? I didn't ask about the last name ahead of time. Denilson, did I get that correct? Garibo? All right, awesome. Glad to hear that. I want to invite all three of you to open your mics. I know that might be bad Zoom etiquette, but I want to get feedback from all of you right away. I wouldn't ordinarily start a Q&A off in this way, but I will tell you that I watched this in two sittings just because of my schedule. And I watched the first half and I was thinking like, I don't know where this is going. And like, I mean, you know where this year went, right? This past year went. But I was thinking about this in a very like, what is the story that we're telling? And wasn't thinking about it being like a chronological story. And so when I stopped halfway through, I was like, I'm not sure how I'm feeling about this. And then I came back and I got to the end of it. And I was like sitting here at my computer, like with wet eyes, much to my eye doctor's pleasure. And I was like getting very emotional about it. And you all couldn't possibly know this because you don't know me personally, but I was recently asked to be a professor and I've been thinking about it and processing it for a little while. And I will tell you that by the end of this documentary, I was crying, but also thinking to myself, I have to do this. Because seeing students like you all really inspired me when in a time that I find myself being very cynical sometimes and not having a lot of faith and hope in the future of what's coming for us next. And then seeing you all in Oakland, where I'm born. I was born at Kaiser Oakland, which is gone now, but I was born there and I'm a Bay Area kid myself. And I saw this and I just thought to myself, I think we're going to be okay. I think we're going to be okay when there are kids that are out there that are making the move that y'all are making, and now adults that are going to be taking the baton. And so I really, really appreciate that. To get started, Pete, I would love to know, what were the conversations that started the making of this piece of story?
It really began with The Waiting Room, which was, a film that we made and came out in 2012. It was about ostensibly the uninsured, trying to understand what it was like to navigate the healthcare system without being insured at a time when, the conversation around access to healthcare was really loud and noisy and dominated by people who were not sitting stuck in waiting rooms like at Highland Hospital. And so I wanted to sort of, it started off almost as a community, very small digital community storytelling project. We interviewed hundreds of, we realized that all the people sort of stuck in the waiting room, had something to say, had something to share, were a captive audience, and that if we could collect those stories, it could add something to the conversation around healthcare reform. And so we did that project, and one of the first people that we met was a young girl who had been shot outside her middle school at Edna Brewer Middle School, right around the corner from the high school in Oakland. And I knew that I couldn't, that this one film about healthcare couldn't really tell the whole story, and it couldn't certainly tell her story in full. And that starting to wonder about her agency and her journey. What were the things that she was facing as she grew up? Not, trying to overcome things like the achievement gap and income inequality and housing insecurity, food insecurity, but, sitting in a hospital waiting room, waiting to get treated for a gunshot wound. So I started thinking about the connection of all these institutions in a city like Oakland, from its school system to the criminal justice system to the healthcare system, and how telling that grand narrative might inform how we see sort of our communities and how we can design policy to address some of the shortcomings.
What has been the feedback to this particular film when you've gone out and gotten to show it to folks? What have they said to you?
I think a lot of people have a reaction similar to yours. It's a very emotional film for people to sort of see this glimmer of hope that in the rubble of what was lost in this year that is such a collective loss. It was something that we all experienced collectively, from COVID to, the way that the Black Lives Matter movement erupted into the mainstream. That was something that we all experienced together. But for these kids, these are young people who, and I think we all remember when we were younger, thinking about walking across that stage or going to prom or performing in the school play or going to senior parties, and all that was taken away from them. And in a similar way that so much was taken away from us collectively because of COVID and other things. And so I think to see how they found their voice in the wake of that is a deeply emotional revelation. And for us, we certainly didn't, we set out to make a very different film. We were setting out to really explore the emotional lives of young kids of color. My kids are, kids of color, and we were struggling with my daughter for many years with depression and anxiety. And she passed away from a drug overdose shortly after we began filming the movie. And so the initial sort of focus was very different. And then as the film evolved and I was sort of dealing with my own trauma, this thing just happened. And so it's in some ways, this movie is less about sort of my intentions as a filmmaker than it is about what these young people did and the serendipity of us sort of being there to capture it. That the intention was to sort of tell a grand narrative of this American city. And in that sense, we were able to position ourselves to tell this story, but really it was so much about what these young people did. And I think people just feel emotionally that deeply. And I think that's been reflected in a lot of the reaction that we've got to the film.
I want to turn to Jessica and Denilson for a bit and talk to y'all about the experience for you all. I don't often get to hear from students themselves about what the last year and a half of school has been like, in the way that has impacted your lives, that especially, that being your senior year and all of that. Jessica, I'll let you go first. What did it feel like being in school through that senior year for you?
I actually was a junior. So
okay.
It was very different. My senior year, I had no senior year, so I still feel like my junior year self, even though I'm a freshman in college already. When it comes to that whole experience was like, it's a 3-week vacation. Then it goes into it's a month vacation, and we're having fun, and we're still trying to find out. I mean, we're not having actually fun because there's so many inequities during that time. We started seeing the video of the murder of George Floyd. We started seeing that many people did not have access to internet during that time. So it was very hard for people to complete their assignments, to do their schoolwork. And then also there was a lot of inequities when it came to the pandemic, when people were losing their jobs, when people were not being able to pay their rent, their mortgage. And it was just this whole, for us, it was like, oh, we're having fun. We're bored in some ways. We were using TikTok to communicate that. And some of us were struggling at the same time. We were trying to handle both at the same time, being able to be a student or a teenager while dealing in a whole pandemic, while carrying so many things. And I think we still haven't even got to the point that, you know, we have to learn how to unpack that, because there's still students who are still struggling and trying to carry the mental health and everything, and we're not really unpacking it to this day. Yeah.
I just love to hear people your age talking about mental health, because I know, and I'm going to start sounding really old when I start saying things like this to students, but I'm 36 years old. I'm coming up on my 20-year anniversary
Baby.
in about 2 years. Thank you. My 20-year anniversary, or my high school reunion, is coming up in 2 years. And now I'm one of the people talking to students, and like now going to, you know, look at being a professor. And so as I'm hearing you talk about this, I'm just really intrigued by the ways that the issues that you all are facing are so uniquely different than your parents when they were in school, right? Denilson, talk to me about this year that we watched throughout filming. Did it feel like to be living through that time?
Before that, I just want to say you're eating them years up, because I can't even tell.
It's a damn good moisturizer and a lot of light. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. But as for my year, it was very challenging. It was very challenging because at the time I was living with my cousins, and they had barely came from Mexico. So they were barely starting school. They were trying to get, you know, used to the school system and all of that. And then out of nowhere, the pandemic hit. So, you know, trying to get situated with how Zoom works and all of that. So I had to help them out. I had to help them out while at the same time trying to continue, you know, my organizing with OCD Council Student Union, and also like the college applications, like keeping up with that. So it was a lot. And like Jessica said, there were a lot of, you know, mental health being at risk, our mental health being at risk because of just staying at home all the time and not being able to go out, and being stripped away. I was a senior at the time, so being stripped away from all the fun activities that we were all hoping for to, you know, wrap up our senior year, such as our prom, our graduation. Like the whole point of high school is being able to walk the stage in that, you know, amazing feeling. And, you know, we weren't able to experience that. And to this day, I feel like the transition from high school to college, it didn't happen, because I'm literally right now a sophomore, and I'm like, I was just a senior in high school. So it's just weird. It's just weird.
I get that. Okay. I want to know, Denilson, I'll start with you since I'm talking with you right now. Talk to me about this spirit of activism within you all as students, because that was what was the most encouraging to me. Talk to me about where that came from and how that, you know, got started in you.
Honestly, the spirit of activism, I remember it all happened during freshman year. There was a time where I felt like I was being pushed out of high school because of the lack of resources that I encountered at the time. And I just, you know, realized that. And luckily I had a mentor by my side. I had a great support system that was able to, you know, help me overcome all of that. And I noticed that not a lot of students had those type of support systems, weren't involved in like these programs that could support them. So I wanted to be able to provide more of that and have these type of conversations with these students of the systems that we are placed in. And that's how I got connected with OCD Council Student Union. At the time, the former students director was in my leadership class, so she started telling me about all these resources that OCD Council Student Union be advocating for. And I was like, how can I get involved? What can I do? And she told me to go to the meetings, go to the board meetings, see what's happening. And that's how I got involved, basically. And I remember that same year, there was a lot of budget cuts happening, like a lot of budget cuts happening. And there was a major walkout from the students to be able to advocate for restorative justice because they were cutting all of that. And I just felt very passionate about that. And to this day, like I continue to, you know, have that spirit with me. And also it's because we come from Oakland too, you know, we come from that place of resilience and determination. So Yeah.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Jessica, I want to talk to you about the spirit of activism that I really see throughout the class. And I've never seen so many students that were so empowered and outspoken in the way that I saw all of you all. Maybe when I think about like the Parkland students or something like that, but like you all have just really this great spirit of activism. Talk to me about how you all are talking about amongst each other, you know, leadership and wanting to be out there in front for your communities.
I think we all as students have seen the impact of what, you know, the older generations have left for us, and we want to fix that when it comes to, you know,
Say that.
I think when it comes to the inequities of, you know, of health, I mean, we could go like with all the inequities of the whole systems,
Yes.
and just everything we want to change to make it for us better and for this generation for us to succeed, for us to have our people of color have generation wealth, to build different legacies for like people of color. And I think that's what we kind of want for ourselves. And coming from Oakland, just like tagging what Denilson said, we just want resilience. We have that determination to get out of the hood, or to get like be able to do things on our own and everything. And you know, just as Oakland students, we always are we're pretty independent on ourselves. Like we don't talk about that, like how much trauma we carry, to the point that, you know, you're not that open. We're very open-minded in some ways. And definitely when it comes to our class, or just this whole generation, that we just want to make a change. We want to be able to see our grandchildren, or be able to see different changes and be more open-minded, so we don't have to carry what our older generations carry, the chains of so many different things. So I think that's what our generation is trying to create, is being able to have a better society as a whole for like the next future generations, and hopefully our earth doesn't burn down as it is right now. So I think as a whole, we're trying to just make a big change.
I love that you put it that way. I always say that I believe that millennials are not lazy or, you know, entitled in the way that people say that we are. And you're not necessarily millennials, you would be Gen Zers, I guess now, right? But, or somewhere in there, right? Somewhere in that gray area. But I always really believe that that this generation of students, of kids, of young adults, and, you know, mid-range adults, have seen what we have coming ahead of us, right? When we're thinking about climate change, when we're thinking about all of the inequalities you were talking about, whether it's education, healthcare, finances, so many different ways. And it's encouraging to me to see all of you fighting so hard and being so outspoken for yourselves. And I think that that's what really spoke to me as a community leader here in Los Angeles. I was really encouraged. Do you all think of yourselves as leaders? Do you think of yourselves as, you know, the future of activism leadership, or is that too much to think about?
I can go for it. I mean, I don't see myself as a leader. I don't see myself as a leader. I just see myself as a society, or I don't even know, like an organizer, something that just trying to make a change, but not really as a leader. I think, you know, we're actually, let me rephrase that. We're all leaders. We all have our different, you know, we have all different goals that we want to do in the future. And I think at the end, we're just all as leaders trying to make a huge difference in our world and our society, to be able to continue what we have to continue.
Jessica, I'm going to push back on that. I think, and I'm sure that P can probably tell you better than I can, as I watched you all, I was like, this is what the future of leadership looks like. You all are what are going to be the future activists whose names will be on our lips. You all are the future professors and mayors and, you know, lawyers and doctors and presidents of the United States and senators and Congress folks and all of that. Like, what you were doing at your school, in your community, like, those are the things that have an impact, right? You all were able to get the police off of your campuses. Think about how that helps years and years of students that come after you, right? And it will be because of the work that you all did. It was so inspiring to me. Pete, you can probably talk to them a little bit more than I can about their leadership qualities. I would love for you to be able to talk to them about their own leadership.
You know, it's interesting because you know, my kids are the same age, and my daughter was friends with a lot of the kids. She went to Oakland Tech, but she was friends with a lot of the kids who went to Ohio. And in raising her, and in some ways I wanted to try to reflect some of that tension that I always felt trying to understand Karina in particular, because she is older. She was the older child, and she was always seemed to be a step or two ahead of my understanding of how young people were absorbing the world, thinking about the world, communicating with each other, seeing a path for the future. And I always felt that there was some kind of disconnect between me and her, this classic relationship between parent and child. I also think that's happening at the level of student teacher, that a lot of teachers aren't fully understanding, and also the relationship, the idea of education has radically changed in terms of how young people are getting their information. We wanted to kind of explore that. And going back to your original thing, about the reaction to the movie, how people reacted, everyone has reacted kind of, a lot of the press, the headlines, we get things like "the kids are all right" kind of comments of like, wow, like this is of the 3 films I've made, this is clearly the most hopeful film. The other 2 films, The Waiting Room and The Force, really dug into problems in the system. This one, it did sort of dig into some specific problems in the system, but it was much more about that leadership, about that vision, about really trying to communicate to the adults in the room. This is who young people are. These are the tools at their disposal. This is how they're using their tools, and don't sleep on them. And not only don't sleep on them, but it may be time to bring them into the process of formulating policy. And one of the plot lines in the film that wasn't fully articulated, because we just had to make choices for the edit, was a Vote at 16 initiative that Jessica and Denilson, along with their colleagues in the All City Council, pushed forward, that now allows students ages 16 and older to vote on school board, when school board members go up for vote. So that I'll let them speak more to that, but that was very significant in addition to this initiative to remove the kids from the school. So that to me, it's pretty clear in terms of what that means. And characterizing yourself as a leader, I think, Jessica, it sometimes, seeing yourself as an individual leader, takes away from the power of the collective. And I think that's what Jessica was getting at, is that she doesn't see herself as one individual leader, but that they are all sort of in their collective way achieving amazing things. And I think that's part of what we tried to capture in the movie.
I really love that. Denilson, I see you nodding. What are you thinking when it comes to the conversation about leadership amongst you all as a collective and individually?
No, I totally agree with what Jessica said. I feel like we are all leaders in our own way. We tend to do different ways to help our community out. I recognize, however, that there is a sense of trauma in our community that does not let everyone, speak up or get involved in all of that, which is why I see myself doing that for those vulnerable communities. I see myself fighting for everyone in my community and being a good ally and standing in solidarity with them. So to me, that's what makes me a leader, So these qualities might not reflect on other people, but that doesn't mean they're not leaders. They take different outcomes to become leaders. So that's
yeah, and I want to be more expansive about what I mean with leadership, right? You don't have to be an elected official to be a leader, right? You can be a filmmaker, you can be a journalist, you can be, anyone who's using your platform to be able to affect change. And I just really respect that about you all. There were 2 other things that I really wanted to touch on. First off, In the Heights is one of my favorite Broadway musicals of all time. And so seeing y'all preparing for In the Heights, I was very excited about, and singing along. We don't have to get into that. But the other thing that I wanted to talk to you all about was there's a good amount of conversation regarding over-policing specific impact on the undocumented. And I'm curious, Pete, from you all, what was the conversation you all were having within production and then with the cast? And then Denilson and Jessica, I'd love to know how you all were discussing that as well. But Pete, first of all, how was production discussing that issue of the visibility of undocumented folks?
Documentary, it's always very rarely do you end where you begin. And for us, the first, we had to cast the movie. We had to sort of pick the students that we're going to follow. And, you can't include every student that you even follow in the film, but we recognized, we met Denilson pretty early in the process. And in the previous year, we had done some research and we had noticed these student directors sitting on the school board who were sort of caught in the maelstrom of a political coming of age for these young people. And we found that to be a potentially fascinating thread to follow in terms of one of the students. We didn't want to just follow kids who were maybe on the surface leaders or the smart kids. We also wanted to look at the kids who are not going to school, the kids who are smoking weed, the kids who are into sports. We had this sort of diverse slate of students that we wanted to follow. And Denilson stood out to us immediately because of his position, caught in between, the community and the school board, and trying to reconcile their own identity with the needs of the school board as a politician and the wants of the community. And that issue around, we noticed early on that, he had a lot of anxiety about coming forward, just participating in some of the marches, given his status. And so that was something that we talked to ourselves internally about the ethics of documenting that, but we also were very direct with Denilson to make sure that he understood if this is what you're getting at, that the ramifications of appearing in a documentary are significant. So being a leader often attracts, and I think the act of agreeing to be in a documentary is an act of leadership, in my opinion. But I think that that was something that we were very cognizant about, talked to Denilson about directly, talked to his family about, just to make sure that everyone was on the same page and that we weren't putting anybody at risk. But it was an important theme that immediately that was very particular to Oakland High, whether it's immigration status, whether it's food insecurity or housing insecurity or racism, implicit bias, police on the schools. These are not issues that face kids at schools in Lafayette or Orinda or Walnut Creek. And so we really wanted to try to unpack how those issues were affecting their day-to-day lives.
For those of you that are not from the Bay Area, the names of the places that Pete is naming are the more affluent neighborhoods, right? Where their zip code and, median income mean that their schools have a lot more money and a lot more resources. But also those students are looked at and treated differently because of, what they look like and who their parents are. Jessica, Denilson, how were you all discussing the visibility of being a part of a documentary from the undocumented standpoint, but also from just like the exposure kind of standpoint? What were you all talking about amongst yourselves?
It most definitely took a lot of conversation with one another, because we were like, what are we going to be represented as in this film? What are people going to take from this? So it took a lot of conversations and a lot of, just dialogue, because we didn't want it to represent Oakland in a negative way, because obviously in the media that's already happening. Oakland's always described as violent and all of these negative stuff that people describe Oakland as, and we wasn't trying to represent that. So we were like, okay, we're gonna get involved on this, but we're gonna have to do it the right way. We're gonna represent Oakland how we see Oakland, how Oakland is diversified and is like united within our community. So that's what we wanted to represent. And also just the power of the youth itself. The power and spirit of Oakland youth is powerful, and that comes from our ancestors too. The Black Panthers were founded in Oakland, and all these moves that have happened in Oakland. And we just wanted to take on that and uplift that. So that's what happened. And like Pete said, it took also a lot of conversations from my part with my family because of my status. And, my family was like, do not let, us stop you, because at the time I was documented, like I was not fully undocumented, I had like my work permit or something like that. And my parents were fully undocumented. So they were like, do not let us stop you. Like, go ahead. If this is, going to take you further in life, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and make your mark in the world because you've been through so much. And I was like, okay, but I wasn't trying to be selfish, So obviously there were times where I knew I was going to put not just myself in jeopardy, but also my family. So I had to take a step back from like the movement itself, which is why you don't see me in some protests in the film. I couldn't make it to one protest because I heard that ICE was being called in and all of that. So I was scared of all of that. But yeah, I think it's just a whole cycle that just because I believe it was like 2 or 3 months ago, my family recently got their residency.
Hey.
So, it was like God knew that we were going to get our residency. And I was just so happy to just see the film come to life and all the impact that it's causing. And yeah.
But it's really killing me because this is the thing about film and documentary is, I could have made a 3-hour film, I suppose, we had to make choices and, try to streamline the narrative and we're at risk of losing people like you. You're like, we almost lost you, and it's like, you got to keep the audience engaged and, there's got to be a plot and there's got to be something turning, but there was so much that we filmed that showed the hurdles that the walls that students like Denilson and Jessica and Edgar and all the kids in the movie have to go through, that those kids in Lafayette and Walnut Creek and Piedmont don't have to go through. That in addition, and like that girl that we met in the waiting room back in 2009 who had been shot, that people don't fully understand these kids, like what they have to just to graduate, the things that they have to overcome beyond just getting the grades, getting the SAT scores, and getting into those schools. We found to be powerful, and so whether there's going to be a sequel or not, I'm not sure. But that was one, and we filmed the scene with Denilson trying to get it was something about financial aid that was connected to his status, and he was on the phone with this woman, and it was like a half hour, and it took a lot of energy and work for him to sort of not knowing who to call or how to navigate that thing. And so that's something that I think people don't fully understand, that these young people who are graduating with not the best grades, not the best SAT scores, not all of them are going to Harvard, Princeton, Yale, they're nevertheless in possession of a skill set born from these struggles and these challenges and these trauma that really allow them to be the leaders that they are. And that was one of the most profound sort of realizations that we have in meeting them and following them.
Yeah, I feel like I'm sure there's a lot when you are filming for so long that you just end up leaving on the cutting room floor. You kind of led me to the next question that I wanted to really get from each of you. We see the end of the story, and we've kind of heard Jessica and Denilson, we've heard you both talk about being in college now. And, I have to know, like, what happened to y'all after this, right? Like, where are you now? Jessica, I'll have you go first. Like, what the heck has been going on since we wrapped filming? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's been a crazy year. Definitely. I'm at UC Berkeley. I
noticed the shirt. I see you. Okay.
Everybody like says that, if you're from Berkeley, you always gotta show off you're from Berkeley. So,
Listen, I'm from the Bay Area. I'm familiar with what comes with going to Berkeley.
Go Bears.
Right.
Yes, go Bears. Definitely, yeah, it's my freshman year. I'm currently loving it. Definitely there's a lot of, it's already midterm. So there's this whole point of, I'm just almost there. But yeah, I do hope I am majoring in psychology, and probably I am working on making education a major at Berkeley right now. So I'm currently on that research group as well. So we're making probably education a major by next year. So then I'll hopefully be majoring in psychology and education.
Jessica, you know what that's called, right? Leadership. It is. Denilson, talk to me about what's been going on with you since wrapping the film.
Since wrapping the film, I've been attending Long Beach State University. During the summer, I was interning with P, because after the film, I got very passionate about storytelling. I'm like, let me get to know more about this because I see the impact that it's having in my community. And it's like, I want to be able to share more stories like Homeroom and like the waiting room. And I was really inspired from it. So I wanted to learn more about that. And I was also interning with, you know, the Oakland Unified School District as well, because I wanted to get to connected with the work, you know, because during my freshman year, I was like all on college trying to get situated because I didn't have time to, you know, do internships with them. And during the summer, I took the time to intern with them and see how was, you know, the organizing happening, what were they doing? And the work is continuing. The work is most definitely continuing. I plan to apply to the University of Southern California by the end of the spring. And, you know, fingers crossed, I get accepted, manifesting it. But yeah, that's what.
I love that. I love that. All right, Pete. So what do we do? How do we get this follow-up documentary about where all these kids have gone and now that they're adults and are taking over the world? Who do I need to write a check to?
We're working on it. Well, you know, I started and, you know, Denilson interned with us, our nonprofit Openhood, which has been the umbrella of the trilogy. Another student who was in the film, Dwayne Davis, interned with my company Proximity Media that I started with Ryan Kugler. So this is a company that we just launched about 6 months ago. We're doing a range of stuff from sort of big, you know, sort of Hollywood fiction projects to documentaries, podcasts, music projects. And so a lot of the work I'm going to be doing now is going to push through Proximity. It's going to have that platform and that ability to sort of make a statement. We're in developing a series on adolescent mental health right now. That's going to sort of pick up this thread of this generation. Where are they? Where have they been? Where are they going? And what's happening with them? And do we understand, you know, is the system, which I know from, you know, trying desperately to get help for my daughter, that the system is broken for real, like the mental health system in general, but in particular, the adolescent mental health system. And, you know, we're a family of resources. What about all the kids whose families don't have resources? Our jails are filled with people with undiagnosed and untreated mental health issues. And so we're looking to do a big sort of national, whereas my work has been focused on Oakland for the last 15 years. I'm going to sort of break that out nationally and start looking at sort of, you know, America as a whole, because I think we're at a crossroads right now where we're sort of asking questions of sort of where our world is going. To Jessica's point, you know, we can't lose perspective because things are literally and figuratively burning right now. And, you know, who's going to put out that fire and how are we going to put it out are some of the big questions. And I think storytelling plays a huge role in that. So we're going to just, you know, keep being inspired by everybody that I've ever worked with in a documentary who's I've been grateful enough to, you know, get to know and follow. And one of my documentaries has inspired me, has taught me. And I'm going to carry that with me, you know, into the future.
Pete, I love that. Because you said I can call you Pete. I keep calling you Pete, and I feel like we're friends.
If I'm in trouble, like my mom, like she'll bust out the Peter. She'll throw the middle name in there too, Peter Oliveira Nix.
There we go. There we go. I just want to tell y'all that like I said, I'm incredibly inspired by both of you, Jessica and Denilson, and being able to see what you were able to accomplish there. Where I'm from was just really, really exciting and inspiring and encouraging. Peter, I am really grateful for what you all put together in this documentary. I said Peter without being angry. I was trying to soothe that trauma just a little bit.
Okay.
But for all of you that are watching us have this conversation, I would encourage you to go out and tell someone to watch this documentary and let them know that it's the inspiration that they might need coming out of a really, really difficult situation that we've all lived through. We thank you so much for joining us here for the IDA. I also just want to pause for one moment and thank none other than Andrea Lest, who's been keeping up with me this whole time, our ASL interpreter. I know that I talk really fast and I always apologize. So thank you so much. Have a great. She's been killing it over there. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Make sure to go check out Homeroom and tell a friend to watch it. Have a great one.
Thanks, Jarrett.